So I wanted to share with you some of the best and worst gifts that I've ever been given and or received. And this right here is definitely one of the best. This is my all-American pressure canner, and I got this for Christmas. I think my husband got me this for Christmas. We're gonna say about 5 years ago. It's been a number of years ago, and he still gets points for getting me this pressure canner. I had a much smaller pressure canner before that, and this is the 21.5 quart, which will fit 7 wide mouth quart jars and up to 19 pint jars double stacked. It will not hold 21 quarts. The 21.5 quarts is how much total volume of water that you can pour inside of it. But I love this thing. I get so much use out of it year in and year out, and it will last probably well over a lifetime and be something that I will pass on to my daughter someday. So highly recommend an all-American pressure canner if you are looking for a pressure canner. Now, right now, a lot of the preserving supplies are really hard to find. So I have links. You can go to my Homesteading gift giving guide blog posts where I've got links and sometimes different coupon codes, etc., for some different spots where you can either get on wait lists, or if they do have it in stock, we'll be continually updating that, so you can check that out. Now, a lot of my best gifts that I've ever gotten have actually come and have to do with the kitchen. So this, I love my cast iron, and I've used cast iron for many, many years, but the cast iron loaf pan. I had originally gotten one of them, and I loved it so much that I was only baking one loaf of bread at a time because I could tell a difference in the texture. I just felt like the bread, oh my gosh, not the bed braked. That the bread baked so much better in the cast iron pan that I had a lovely lady in the Pioneering Today Academy. She sent me a second loaf pan because she felt sorry for me only baking one loaf of bread at a time. So this was the second cast iron loaf pan that I got. I actually got rid of most of my other loaf pans. I only used the cast iron one. The one I originally had purchased myself, however, is not a gift. So it is still sitting in the cupboard, but really, really adore this cast iron loaf pan. Now this is a much smaller item, so this can be a great inexpensive gift to give to somebody or to give to yourself, and it's a Danish dough whisk. My mom actually got me this Danish dough whisk a couple of Christmases ago. I think it was about 2 Christmases ago, and I had seen Danish dough whisks in stores, and I'd seen them online and people have them and stuff, but I was kind of like, oh, it's a dough whisk. Like, I don't really need something like that. You guys, this has been one of the best things that I've ever gotten in the kitchen. I love this. It is so easy to whip up batters, obviously bread doughs, any type of dough or batter, including like quick breads, like the sourdough chocolate quick bread, or if you're doing like a regular loaf bread or the artisan bread dough, you saw me use it in that video. It makes a huge world of difference. So if you've been on the fence or you don't have one of these, just do yourself a favor, get one for yourself and then get them for everybody else on your list who cooks and bakes in the kitchen. Love this. Now, I've got some larger and smaller gifts. So this right here is one of my favorite gifts to give, and that is food. So this is a homemade brownie jar mix, and of course, mason jars. I have both the shirt to prove it, which you can get one of those shirts too, and is a great gift to give to the mason jar addict lover in your life and or yourself. But mason jars make gift giving so nice, and I love doing edible gifts. My mom gave me a brownie mix in a jar for Christmas. Gosh, it was when I was working, the kids were little, and we had to work on Christmas Eve. And then we had something to go to, an event. And my mom had given me a brownie mix in a jar. She's great at giving practical gifts. And who doesn't love to have chocolate, right? And a homemade made-up mix instead of a store-bought one. And I needed something really fast. I got home from work. It was like 6:30 at night. We were supposed to be to an event at like 8 o'clock and bring a dessert. And so I whipped up this brownie mix. And after I had the brownie mix that she had given me, I like forsake all my other brownie recipes. It was, not only was it great because it was done for me, so it was super fast, but it was one of the best brownies that I had ever had. So it's now the only one that I use. So I thought I would show you how quick and easy it is to make this up into a gift. Now, if you can pour really well, go for it. I tend to be a messy cook in the kitchen. I think it's a sign of a good cook. I'm sticking with that story. So I use a funnel when I'm assembling my different gifts, food gifts in a jar. So for starters, we've got 1 cup just regular, this is unbleached organic all-purpose flour, and an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. So I'm just gonna kind of put that in there together, stir it around a little bit, but it'll get incorporated later when whoever gets this mixes it up. So we're just gonna go ahead and dump that in. Now you kind of have 2 options. You can decide to mix up all of the dry goods together in a bowl ahead of time, or you can just layer them in the jar. Totally up to you. So we've got our flour in there. Now we have our sugar. So we're gonna pour that in. Next up is our cocoa powder. And then I'm just gonna kind of gently sift that. So you've got your layers there. And then last but not least, we've got our chocolate chips. So this is a 1/2 cup of chocolate chips, and I just like to top those right off on top of the jar. And then I just will reuse one of my metal canning lids on there and put the band on there. Now you can get really fancy and you can put some cute little fabric on top of here. You can glue a ribbon, you could tie and hang an ornament, or you could just simply serve it just as it is like this and give it as your gift. So there's lots of ways you can pretty this up. But you're probably like, well, where's the rest of the instructions? And I need the recipe if I want to do this. So you can head on over to the blog. I have the recipe for the amount of dry ingredients that are going to go in the jar. And then I also have a cute little printable tag that you can download that has the instructions that you would attach to the jar for the person when they're going to be making this. So when they're adding the fats and the liquids and the rest of the stuff to bake up their homemade brownie mix. But I feel like you can never go wrong with good edibles. Now, when we want to talk about worst gifts that we've ever received, I know there's many people who are like, do not give me a fruitcake. Many people consider fruitcake to be like the worst gift ever. But we actually have a gentleman where I live and he makes fruitcakes. He starts them in September. Like they soak with alcohol in them. They don't have like the weird gumdrops. Now, if you like the gumdrops in fruitcake, like have at it. I'll give you mine, but I don't. But it's like a real traditional fruitcake. He has not shared the recipe with me, so I cannot share it with you, but I actually love it when he gives his fruitcakes, but I haven't received mine yet this year. I don't know if he's still doing it. It was when I was working at the pharmacy, he would come in and gift them out. So I actually like to get specific fruitcakes, but not all fruitcakes. So that one can kind of be a worst and or best gift. But I don't think you can ever go wrong with a good homemade from scratch brownie mix or really good food gifts. I also have a artisan bread in a jar recipe too, and that one is really great to gift. And I like to pair them together. Like you could do up the mix like this or the bread mix, and you could do and put this with it. Like you could tie up one of the little Danish dough whisks with it, and then you could also give them one of the cast iron loaf pans. Or each of these gifts separately are really awesome too. But those are some of my favorites. We're talking about like all of my favorite things. So that means we have to move over to the coffee because coffee is one of my absolute favorite things. So this lovely espresso machine right here, I have had it in some different videos and you guys have asked me about it. I picked this one out myself because I'm very picky. I used to be a barista, and so I'm quite, I hate to use the word snobbish, but a little bit, honestly, about my coffee. So I tried a lot of home espresso machines in the past, and none of them poured a really good shot because I wanted, you need bars of pressure, pounds of pressure behind there. They call them bars. This one is a 9-bar machine. In order to get an espresso shot that actually tastes like an espresso stand and has crema on top and has really good flavor. So technically, my husband bought me this machine for Mother's Day 1.5 years ago, but I totally am the one that put it in the cart because I wanted this exact one. So I love this. I will have down below in the description, if you want to shop this post, you can definitely do that. And I'll have a link to this one, but I've had it for 1.5 years, use it usually, always every day, but usually twice a day, which is why I mix my espresso beans and I do half decaf and half regular because I need 2 cups a day in my life. Speaking of coffee, I found this coffee and I love it. So this is from Camino Island Coffee Roasters. And this is the espresso blend. Maybe I need more espresso. I can't talk, or is that a sign I've had too much? I'm not sure. But I really love them. So this is where you go, and it's a coffee of the month. So this is a great gift either for yourself or to give. It's kind of that gift that keeps on giving. And if you want to try it, I have a link that will give you half off, so you can get 50% off your first order and try them out. But what's great about it is I can set my frequency. So every 4 weeks, I get my espresso, and they roast it and ship it out the very next day. So you get it within a day of it being roasted. So it's super fresh. I get the whole bean because this machine has a grinder in it. So I just put the whole grains in, and it will, or whole beans, not grains. I'm not talking flour mills today, it's coffee. And it will grind them. But what's awesome about this is it is organic and it is shade grown. So I've shared with a lot of you guys in the past know that I used to have really bad stomach ulcers and GERD, and I was on prescription medications up to 6 times a day, and I could not drink coffee. This has been the only coffee because it has less acid in it because it is shade grown and it doesn't have the pesticides because it's organic. I can drink this hot brewed 2 cups of espresso a day, and it does not bother my stomach at all. If I try to drink hot brew of other brands for more than a day or 2 in a row, immediately my stomach acid kicks up and I start to have issues. So that's one of the main reasons I love it, but it does taste really, really good. And it's also fair trade. So I know that the farmers are being treated ethically and are making a good living. So highly recommend this. Like I said, I've got a link. You can try it for 50% off if you want. Now, the espresso machine is definitely not cheap. Like, I will just put that out there, but it is an excellent gift. However, this little guy here is a frother. And I love this thing. Now with my espresso machine, I can actually just go ahead and froth the milk because it has the steam wand, and I don't actually have to use this. But my kids and my husband, or if I'm doing something where I don't want to froth the milk, this little wand works amazing. So I have a little bit of my coffee here, which the foam has since went down because, as you can see, I've almost consumed it all. But this works great like for really incorporating and mixing, like if you're putting in some type of like collagen powder, which I'll often put in my coffee, it works great for that. But you can get a really nice froth on it. So the kids love to use this and play with it too. So how you get the froth is it's battery operated, obviously, and you just put it in there and it spins around. And if you hold it near the surface, see that? It will create a lovely little bit of froth right on the top of your drink there. See? Isn't that nice? So it's really nice and foamy. So we love this. I use it every single day. The kids use it, my husband uses it, and so this can be a great little gift to get and or receive. And I kind of been talking all about food, and we're not about to stop now because we all have to eat. It should be really amazing food, right? So one of the most favorite gifts that I ever got was 2 Christmases ago. And my mother-in-law knocked it out of the park. So she gave me, this was my husband's great grandma's cookbook. And so she gave me this cookbook. You can see it's old, but what was really awesome is not only did I get great grandma's cookbook, which was really fabulous, but she also had went through and put in all of the recipe cards and notes and letters that they had where my husband's great grandma had corresponded with family back home. They had moved to Washington State from Idaho. And so there's all of these little, they would send each other like clippings and recipe clippings from newspapers or just different things like that. And then their handwritten notes to each other that had different recipes and stuff on there. Like here is a recipe for carrot bread, which I have not gotten to try yet. Drop cookies. And I loved their script. Like the handwriting back then, I don't have good handwriting. I have really sloppy handwriting. So I'm always a bit envious is probably not the right word, but it's pretty close. When I look at some of the beautiful handwriting that people, and some people still have beautiful handwriting. I just don't happen to be one of them. But I've got all of these old recipes in here of theirs and all of their handwritten correspondence, as well as all of the recipes in this cookbook. So this was it's called a Searchlight recipe book. It was from Household Magazine. Actually, I can't remember. Let me look real quick. The print date, 1931 is the copyright on this one. So this was one of my best gifts, but I often get asked about different cookbooks. And so if you're a from scratch cook, and if you're not a from scratch cook, but you're hoping that that person will be, getting them a good cookbook is a good way to go. This one, my mom technically didn't give me, but she lets me borrow and kind of forgets that I have it until she needs to borrow it back, and then I conveniently need to go and borrow it again. So she basically gave it to me. We kind of share it. But this was on my side of the family from my mom. This was my great grandma's cookbook. And so it actually has in there, her name was written in there, and it was actually given to my mom, and it says your great great grandmother. So this was an old Watkins cookbook, and I think this one is from I'm trying to remember if this was from the 1930s or 40s. I'm not sure if this one has the copyright at the front. Oh, 1938, it does. So this is from the 1930s too. But what's really fun, kind of the same thing with this one, is when I flipped through these pages, she had marked it with a little tiny X on recipes that she liked and used often. And so she would mark the ones that she thought was good. So it's been really fun to get to go through here and make some of the recipes from the book, knowing that there were ones that she made too, even though I haven't got to meet her in this life, or this side of heaven, I should say, in my lifetime. I feel like a connection. So that's one of a fun one. I have some other cookbooks too. This one was sent to me actually by a reader, and it's called the White House Cookbook. It's really cool. It doesn't have the front on it anymore. It's very old. The binding, you can see the binding's kind of falling apart. But the book is all the way here, and it's from 1911. So this is a really old cookbook. But it's really fun to read. Like, I just love reading all of the stuff in here. And of course they have like cut charts. So they have cut charts for venison, for pork. Like, it's a really cool book. Doing the breast of veal, the neck of veal. So a lot of different cuts and stuff that we don't really see or use that much in like regular modern society. Now, I know some people do veal and venison, but it's not something you're going to the grocery store and really usually finding venison on the shelf. Roast goose and fowl, and then it has just a ton of recipes in here. So this one was really fun. Some of these other ones were gifts when I first got married. My mom got me this old Betty Crocker cookie book, and I still have this one. It's really fun. It's just got all kinds of different Christmas cookies from like 1976. And so I still will go through here and pull out different recipes. And then this is the Betty Crocker picture cookbook. And this one I actually got from a coworker who was cleaning out, I think it was her mom's house. And it was this old cookbook, and kind of the same thing. Like, you had where they had taken clippings of different recipes that they liked from like different magazines and stuff, and they had put them all into this cookbook. But this is a great one, and you can still get, I'm pretty sure that this Betty Crocker cookbook you can get in newer editions. This just happens to be an older one. But it's got some great, what I love about the older cookbooks is it was pretty much all from scratch cooking. Like, it wasn't mixed together a box of cornbread stuffing with a can of cream of mushroom condensed soup. It was like showing you how to do it all completely from scratch and simple without a lot of like specialty ingredients. Just good home cooking, which is what I'm after. So those are some of my favorites. And of course, if you are after more of those type of recipes as well, which is just really good, simple, handmade, from scratch cooking, my book, Handmade, has over 100 recipes in here, and they are all, some of them actually are even from like some of my grandma's recipes that I've adapted that came from some of these older cookbooks and are just family favorites are in this one too. So I love to get and give cookbooks, and these are some of my favorite ones that I have ever gotten before. Now, there's a lot more different homesteading gifts that are fabulous to give and receive, and all different price points. So I've kind of broken them down. So you can go to my Homestead gift giving guide. I will link to that. You can go and check that out. I do have some links that have coupon codes from some of the different companies. So if you're looking to purchase some of them, you can get a great deal, and I'll make sure and link to that so you can go and check out that, where there's even more items broken down by their price points. Now, those worst gifts. I know I mentioned fruitcake because that's one that's kind of commonly joked about during the holidays. And I realize that giving a gift, when you are given a gift, that you should always just be grateful that someone thought of you and got you something. So we're not, disparaging any of that. However, I have to say, looking back and thinking about some of the worst gifts, or the gifts that I was just like, oh man, I wish the person hadn't spent the money on that. And usually that comes in with when you don't really know the person that well, or you're just purchasing something because you feel like you're obligated to give them something and you don't know what, and so you're just getting something. So I have to say, overall, I'm really careful buying home decor for somebody unless I absolutely know them, know without a shadow of a doubt, oh my goodness, they are going to love this. Because it can be really easy to just kind of grab something and then you give it to somebody, and like I've had, like, I'm like, I don't even know where to put this, and like, it's okay, but it's not my favorite. Like, so I would say be very careful with buying home decor. And then one time we got this cake mix, and it was like a margarita or tequila cake mix, which like just gross right off the bat, right? And I am a from scratch cook. I don't use boxed cake mixes, especially with something like a margarita mix in it with a cake. And so you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And food gifts can be a great way to go, but I say like a homemade food gift or a mix, or if it's somebody that you know is like a whole foodie type person who's, you know, addicted to mason jars, they probably aren't going to want like a margarita cake mix. So that can be great to give, like, if you want to do white elephant gifts. But it was one that I didn't even try to regift. I, honest to goodness, just threw it away. So I think that the moral of that story is, when it comes to the worst gifts, is really knowing the person that you are giving a gift to. And clothing is another item that I'm really careful with as well, because clothing is such like a hard thing to give to somebody. And so even like when I think I know my own kids, which is probably like every mom says this ever, but as they start to enter into their teenage and even their young adult years, like, it can be really hard to buy for them. Like, I think they're going to like it, and they're like, no, Mom, I don't like that, which at this age, they're still at home. They have no problem telling me that they don't like what I bought them when it comes to clothes. So I would say the key is really, really knowing who you're buying for and making sure that it's something that you're 100% sure that they're really, really going to love, and really thinking hard about that before just grabbing something. Because I know we can kind of get like, oh goodness, like we have an event to go to, or it's actually Christmas or a Christmas party, and we didn't get anything beforehand. So you're kind of almost like in the overwhelmed panic mode, I don't know what to do, and you just grab whatever. So hopefully after you go through this, it will give you some great ideas, and you'll be prepared well ahead of time, so you will be able to avoid that.